So do you know like what happened with that thing?
I can't. I would. I would mumble through it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
wish. I mean, they won six state titles in a row. I think,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I was
Yeah.
just curious about the situation where they canceled this the dual state tournament.
Well, I think it was legalities, wasn't it?
Well, that's what they're suggesting. I mean, some people have suggested that something like that might or could be a possibility this year because there's two current lawsuits against the IHSA. Um,
It's nuts.
yeah, it's pretty
Why not just
interesting.
go out and beat the teams, right? If you can't beat them, too bad. Get better.
Yeah, well, I think in this situation, a lot of it's just the rules and people the oversight stuff. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't really know the details as to whether or not how many teams are complaining. I mean, I'm sure there's teams that are upset that some kids are at certain schools and stuff like that. But
Correct.
um, ultimately, I think the IHSA is the one that's making the final determinations. But um, yeah, I guess we'll see how that works out. But yeah, the state tournament should be good. I think I'm excited about just continuing to tell the story. I went to East Harlem last night.
I saw that.
Um, yeah, and East has a few guys that I think are really going to be in position to um, do well at the state tournament this year. I definitely make it to the state tournament. Um, and yeah, I think obviously, the coaches that are coming down are coming on today. Rochelle and Oregon, they both have athletes that are going to be, um, competing this year. Rochelle might even be at the state tournament with hopefully Hananiga as well. So it's like there's a lot going on that I think it is fun that we're kind of doing all this stuff this year. So it's
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to last for a few years too. The way it looks like some really good coaches in the area are, working hard to get kids better.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely are. There's some good ones I've met a lot. I've talked to a lot more. This is one thing you obviously could probably attest to. Besides the conference, you never really get to meet or talk and interact with a lot of the coaches and see what's going on. But the podcast has allowed me to kind of meet people and talk to
Yeah.
people about things that are, a little harder to talk about in just passing time. So.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's some young guys that are really excited about wrestling, and yeah, I think yeah, it should be pretty exciting.
It's
These
a
guys
young
are
man's
coming on.
gig.
Yeah, I'm gonna let these individuals in. Nelson, what's up? How you doing tonight
Am I
or
in?
today?
Did I
Yeah,
make
you're
it?
in.
All right. I
Yeah.
couldn't. I had to switch to my iPad, so if it's a little tilted or something, my computer wasn't
Oh,
working. But we're
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah, you're in.
Awesome. It's all good. We got a snow day today. Unfortunately, we can't go down to the Muhammad tournament because it's mid blizzard, but it's all good. We have a long weekend. Get some practices in. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Now, were they? Is the tournament still happening? I know. Wasn't Rockford East in that? I was gonna text Gene to see if he was still planning on going.
Yeah, I called Gene last night, and they were going to make a game time decision today, and I think they called it too. So Byron, Rockford East, and Rochelle are all not making the trip down there, but the tournament is still on, for what I understand.
Yeah.
But it is
Marty.
what it is, out of our
Yeah.
control.
Marty, you ever miss a tournament because of snow?
what?
You
Yeah,
guys
we
ever
did
miss
one time.
tournaments?
We didn't miss a
Don't.
tournament. We had like a mega duels with Naperville Central and a bunch of schools. That was back like when Brad Schrader was in high school, and yeah, they called it off on early Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It's the only time.
Yeah. But this one seems to be the legit time, right?
Oh, this
Yeah,
is a snow. This is snow.
How many times have you plowed today?
Well, I've plowed once, but I'm going back out after we get done with this, and I'll plow again, and then I'm going to wait till tomorrow. But
Yeah.
shoveled three times.
Yeah. It looks like it's coming down.
Yeah. You know what? It was like back when I grew up in Northeast Iowa. These were snow flurries.
Snow flurries. That's what
Yeah,
they called them.
yeah. They never called off school when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, how many kids went to school then?
Like in our school,
Yeah.
I don't want to give that away.
about
Very
12,
small.
14,
What?
12 or 14 over in Iowa.
About 85 kids in the class.
Yeah. Yeah. So they couldn't if they didn't have the kids at home go to school, then the whole town would shut down because businesses would close and everything.
You know that Northeast Iowa area, half the Iowa wrestling team back in the 80s were from that area. Northeast Iowa was a hotbed for wrestling.
Yeah.
One of the few guys to pin their ways through the NCAA tournament and the Big Tens was from Decorah, Bruce Kenseth. He pinned
I
his
did
way
not
through the
know
Big
that.
Tens and the Nationals.
That's impressive.
That
Yeah,
is.
I think there's a couple guys that have, I mean, that has to have happened recently, right?
I don't know.
I know it's hard, but I feel like some of these guys are doing it.
Pin
I
your way
think
through
like
the Big
maybe
Tens.
I
Bo
mean, Ed
Nickel when he
Ruth,
pinned Martin, maybe that year. He's a guy that could have
yeah,
done.
Maybe. But you got to pin your way through the Big Tens too.
Yeah.
yeah, that is tough. Maybe a heavyweight could do it.
Yeah.
But well, Marty, when the Oregon coach gets on, one of the things we're gonna start talking about is this idea between off-season wrestling with freestyle, folk style, Greco stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious to hear your perspective because they just had less freestyle, just in general, and um, the Justin Lahman, the Oregon coach, and myself, we were talking about how a lot of kids could benefit from just continued folk style as opposed to transitioning into freestyle, just because of the the feel, the rule set. Um, what do you think about kids doing freestyle who are maybe still learning folk style?
So you ready for a story first?
Yeah, I'm
All right.
always ready for
So
Marty's story.
the kid from our high school, Bruce Ralston, was a really good four-time state qualifier, and he took second in state. But I was an eighth grader when he was a senior in high school, but I was about his size, so I worked out with him all the time in the off season. And I went with him to Cedar Rapids Prairie with my first ever freestyle tournament as an eighth grader. And they didn't have cadets; it was just one division. Plus, I lied about my age because I was only in eighth grade. And my very first match, I wrestled Barry Davis, and that was before Tech Falls. So, are you
So
ready?
yeah,
26-0.
Ooh.
But
he
I
didn't
didn't
pin
get
you
pinned.
though.
So you know what? I'm a big believer in freestyle. I mean, I did it way back in the late 70s, early 80s. I traveled all over Iowa to wrestle. But
Yeah,
there's a lot of kids though that didn't do it. But even back then, I mean, I'm a full believer if you can get kids to do anything, whether it's freestyle, grapple, folk, in the off season, whatever they feel comfortable doing. Yeah,
yeah.
let them
There you
wrestle
go.
folk style then.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, I think that's where we're all kind of finally finding ourselves to agree is like having the options for everybody to kind of
Yeah,
continue to work because just knowing how important wrestling and confidence is in wrestling. If you don't have confidence yet in folk style, it's going to be hard to have confidence in freestyle. So building
right.
your confidence in that first style that you're starting to figure out and stuff could be beneficial. So
You're
definitely
you're
there's yeah.
you're always going to have the great kids that are going to do that freestyle Greco stuff, but you got to get your mediocre kids to have a really good team just
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah. And that's one thing I noticed last night just watching. I mean, again, without trying to get too like critical of like the wrestling and stuff, but there's just so many. I mean, multiple matches last night. One kid's pinning the one kid, and then while he's getting pinned, flips the other kid over and pins the person. And it's like, how is that even possible? One, and then two, just the fact that there's so many green wrestlers, just wrestlers that don't have much feel and comfortability in the hand fight and the setup. The once that whistle blows, these guys are just going 150 miles an hour, and yeah, I mean it's fun to watch in a gym because the crowd goes back and forth, they're yelling, they don't even know what they're watching. I'm sitting here like, how did that even happen? But yeah, just trying to get the like you said the foundational team, the
Yeah,
rest of the team to kind of have a better baseline.
yeah, and get all the teams to get they can somehow figure things out and meet a couple times a week and all work out together and stuff.
Yeah.
That's you get better. I mean, that's how you get better. I did see though from last night though. I actually looked at the website or whatever you had, and it was 84. It was I think it was 84 points were scored. So that means everybody got pinned or
Yeah, that's
forfeit. Correct?
yeah. Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's not the only. That's not the only duel that ends like that.
No,
There's a
I know.
lot of high scoring duels right now. And again, like I said, the action was fun because again, we could talk about this too. Like I got there. The duel start. It's two duel. It's just one duel, head to head, right? Um, and starts at 6 o'clock, but JV matches before, so then it's like 6:30 where they're getting the senior night stuff going, and then I don't know, 6:45, 7 o'clock it starts, and I'm like, come on, man, if this was a really good duel, I'm not staying probably all the way till 9 o'clock. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm too old now. Maybe I'm just enjoying getting to bed early, but yeah, it was good for me because it went fast. It was a very fast duel. But yeah, a lot of high scoring matches. Nelson, have you seen many high scoring? Like you've seen a lot of that stuff so far this year,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, we've always joked as a coaching staff that our team right now is like pin or be pin, and it's,
Yeah.
we get our guys that are going to win are pinning almost everybody. We got a couple guys that, we've had specific conversations where it's like, hey, man, your job isn't necessarily to go out there and win or isn't to go out there and get a pin. It's going to be a tight duel. If you can lose by a major decision or lose by a decision, that's a win for us. And that's, something I've never really dealt with from a wrestling or coaching perspective. But, hearing that it's going on in other places makes me feel less bad. But, it's just a weird dynamic. We were taught, and maybe we're just too nice nowadays. Like, I refuse to bully our kids. But when I was in college and high school, like, it was really embarrassing to get pinned. Like, that was like the worst case scenario is I get pinned. So, my coaches would just be like absolutely disgusted if any of us got pinned, and we got pinned very rarely. We were talking last night as we met up after our duel, like the old coach at Rochelle had the whole team do 12 down and back sprints for everybody that got pinned. And we were kind of thinking like, hey, maybe we bring that back. If our team gets pinned 3 times, that's what, 36 down and back sprints. Maybe that'll, kind of shorten that up. But I don't know. I think we're in an area where there are a lot of opportunities for wrestlers to get really good. And also, that kind of separates the gap between average wrestlers and the better wrestlers. So maybe we're seeing more disparity between the average and top level. Maybe that's why we're seeing a bunch of pins, but I definitely see that trend everywhere I go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously last night I did not see a gap. There was not a gap.
Mm-hmm.
It was just back. I mean, I
Yeah.
literally saw a kid getting pinned and then 2 seconds later they're pinning. So it was right. But so Nelson, tell us about last night. You guys wrestled Sycamore. I saw you guys won.
Yeah.
Now Sycamore is not part of your conference, right?
No, they are. I think that
Oh,
was the
they are.
duel
All right,
that
okay.
was officially for the conference championship. So that was cool. But we only have 6
Okay.
teams now. We're the Interstate 8, but Sandwich and Plano left. So now we're the Interstate 8, but with only 6. So we don't even have a duel. We don't have a conference tournament or anything. But yeah, I think we won like 58-18, something like that, maybe 58-21. But there were some really fun matches. The score wasn't necessarily reflective of how fun the duel was. And Rochelle and Sycamore are just like arch nemesis, so that's always fun.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and no matter, I have a ton of respect for the guys. I'm the coach over at Sycamore, Randy Colton and Austin Colton and Kyle Akins. Kyle is a guy that I had trained with my whole high school career. He was a 1A, or I was 1A, he was 2A. So it was like a perfect match made in heaven that we got to work out with each other year round and never have to compete with each other. So it's always friendly when we get together with those guys, but it almost makes it more competitive because they're all my friends. And I know that they're smart and tactical, and doesn't matter how good either team is in any given year, it's always going to be a dogfight, which is fun. And then we can all shake hands and give each other hugs afterwards. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good environment.
That is good. So you guys don't have a conference event. So is it the week like the week before regionals? You guys off?
Correct. And I believe maybe I'm incorrect. I know I'm correct that girls regionals is now the weekend before boys regionals is. So maybe it's kind of a blessing in disguise that we don't have a conference tournament, so we can focus the energy on that girls regional tournament. We've got a couple girls that I think are going to do pretty well. So it's not like we have to split, between conference and girls. But I don't know if that was the week that was scheduled to be girls regionals or not, but yeah, no conference. We don't really put a ton of weight on a conference championship with only 6 teams, but it's always fun to, get a trophy and say that we're the best of the conference. Whether that's sustainable, it's always back and forth, between Rochelle, Sycamore, Canelan's, got a couple of hammers. LaSalle Peru's always got a couple good kids. Ottawa, Morris is really good this year in their lightweight. So it's been a fun conference this year.
Yeah. Well, Morty, I want to hear your perspective because obviously in the Nick 10 conference during your tenure, there was obviously a lot of competitive years as well as like towards the end of your career, you kind of separated you separated yourself as a team from the rest of the group. But how beneficial is a conference? Like, say you're not in a situation to make a state run, like how beneficial is a conference tournament and the competitiveness of the conference in building a program?
I think it's huge, especially just for local, for local advertisement, local for the sport, for newspaper media. I think it's very important, if you can have a conference tournament. There were times that we talked about having just like a dual meet. Everybody comes together and there's 9 teams or whatever. We just wrestle duels that day and declare a conference tournament or a champion there. But I liked it. It was great. It was one of my, when Hononegah was nothing when I first came, but when we won our first conference title, I still remember the day. It was back like in 1991 or 92. And it was just, they'd never won anything. They'd done nothing. So, it takes a lot of pride to, and there's going to be good wrestling again in our conference. I know for a fact it may never be like it was because when it was hot and it was good. East, Harlem. There was Auburn, Guilford. Everybody had state qualifiers and stuff. So just going to, it's time. It's a tough sport.
Yeah. It is a tough sport, and especially that's why I was asking, because sometimes you need like I talk about this idea of superficial goals, like you need like a medal to chase so that people get excited. And like, to go from nothing to like a state medal, obviously that's a big jump, obviously. So having a conference that you can kind of build off of, and everybody's aware of like the local teams, right? So Nelson, you're talking about Rochelle and Sycamore, they butt heads maybe in football too or whatever, but it's like when you tell people that you beat Sycamore, the people from Sycamore know they heard it,
Yep.
right? Whether they had common, Facebook is probably even better now because it's like before you had to meet somewhere and be like, hey, did you see they got beat? But now you can just tell people that they got beat on social media and stuff. So yeah, what do you think is the future of that conference?
Man, I really don't know what the future of the conference is. With 6 teams, like Marty had said, we've talked about just like not even wrestling duels in the regular season and just having one day where it's like, you wrestle your 5 duels against everybody and you announce the conference champs and then all conference wrestlers. But that didn't come to fruition this year. I know that Rochelle, as a high school, not only just in wrestling but in football and everything, has made attempts to try and get in the Big Northern with Byron, Oregon, Stillman. We're a really small 2A school. To be honest, we're probably only, a handful of kids bigger than an Oregon or a Stillman. So it wouldn't surprise me to see us drop down to 1A, in the next 5 years with the way our enrollment's trending. But I think the Big Northern would be a really good place to be for us. But when I was in the Big Northern in high school at Byron, I don't remember us having a conference tournament either. So, we're kind of landlocked in this area where, obviously we're not going to go to the Nick 10. That's more of a Rockford area place. I guess it's kind of tough. It's weird.
Yeah.
And it's never been stressed that the conference is something that's super, super important. But I get jealous as I sit here and listen to Marty say, how hotly contested it was and how competitive and how awesome a conference championship was. I will say last year it was really cool when we had our conference tournament with all 8 teams to get that trophy and to hold it up. And we won the JV conference and the varsity conference. That was really cool. But it seems like in the I8, those days are past. So I don't know. I have no idea what the future holds for us, but we'll just keep scrapping with whoever we are put up against.
Yeah, I wish we could do like a region, right? Like an all region tournament where, instead of the because again, some of the conference tournaments in the past, this last year, obviously for the Nick 10, there was a lot of matches compared to some previous years. Some previous years there was like it was not many kids in the tournament. Last year it was pretty full, so every round was still going, but still the depth of talent isn't the same. So it's like I wonder what a region tournament could do as far as one just competitiveness, and then I mean again making it a big deal. Like again, if you win a region a tournament of some kind, right? That's not a state medal, but man, it's got to be pretty close as far as the stepping stone up to a state medal. So I would love. I mean, obviously, I'm always a fan of like more the merrier. The more competition, the better. I was a 4-time conference champ for Nick 10, and outside of my freshman year, it wasn't very difficult to do. So I would have loved to have Byron, Oregon, Rochelle, and Dakota, Lena. I would love to have everybody to come to the tournament and see if I could win that every year too. So.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. The idea of like a region tournament that doesn't care about how big a school is, like that's for the state series. We divide up into 1A, 2A, 3A when it comes state, but region is just like, if you're nearby, you're coming to bang, you're coming to wrestle. And I like that idea. I don't know who we pitch it to, but I think that'd be cool.
Marty, who do we pitch it to?
What
do you think about it?
Well,
what do you think about that as opposed to just the conference, like, getting all the conferences to come together?
I mean, I think the Nick Kens will always have their conference, but if they wanted to have like a regional tournament, it'd be great because not all teams have to come to it. It's those teams that are really good, no matter what class they're in, and they want to compete against other good teams from the Northern Illinois area, which there's a lot of good wrestling here. And that would be cool as hell.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll work on pitching that.
Yeah. Yeah. Pitch that to Gene Lee first. See what he says.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you said though, if you, we're going to do some off season, ideas, as far as just like tournament stuff and see if there's a way to create a really fun event. And then, kind of take that model and put it to, inviting people and doing something during the season. So, yeah, that would be fun. And now that there's no tournament limits, there's no reason for somebody not to participate outside of a conflict of a certain date already. So I think I would love to do that just because it would be fun for us as Northern Illinois wrestling kind of to come together and whether it's the broadcast, whether it's the pre tournament event and speculation around it, brackets and so on and so forth. That's what, again, I've been trying my best to find a way to say, start to figure out who is wrestling at Rochelle, who's wrestling at Byron, who's wrestling at Hononegah, who's trying to figure out so I can start to think about like, that matchup would be good, right? Like I've been looking forward to a few different matchups that would be fun to have, but they don't really line up just because of maybe the classes and the schedule stuff. So, yeah, we'll see how that pans out.
We'll get a shared Google Doc going. We'll get our ideas on paper.
Yeah, we'll start here. Let me see. I don't know if Justin's doesn't look like he's coming in, but
no, he just sent a message that said he was trying to get done with his meeting. He was going to try to pop in as soon as he could. But
okay. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Nelson, if you want to stick around, you can. I think I'm going to send an invite to Jake Messink, from Harlem, and these guys finished up yesterday against East. But is there anything that you got that you want to touch base on before? We might have to reschedule that argument.
Yeah, no,
or not really argument. But.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. For those of you that are listening and wondering, I'm gonna make a pretty good pitch for freestyle and Greco, but it's just whether it's freestyle or whether it's Greco or whether it's folk style, man, more wrestling is better than no wrestling. So any way that we can collaborate in the Northern Illinois area to get more kids on the mat in any way, shape, or form, whether it's more practices, more developmental competitions, more elite competitions, more national competitions, I'm all for. And I know we've got a good group of people here that can provide affordable, wrestling technique and opportunities for kids, as well as the upper level, more expensive, niche stuff that can take you to the levels that, get skyrocketing. So I'm just super excited. And I've been in talks with some other people too about, how we promote freestyle and Greco to, younger individuals and more beginners. We're thinking about holding like a big camp, introducing freestyle and Greco, maybe at Byron, maybe in that big PE center, for like a Northern Illinois area. But that's still, we've messaged like 3 or 4 times back and forth about something that could look like, a free or low cost introduction to international styles of wrestling. So whether or not whether we talk about it today, whether we talk about it later, it don't matter to me, but I'm always available to chat.
Well, I definitely wanted to, again, agree with you. And Marty would definitely agree with this aspect of Greco, just incorporating hand fighting. Again, yesterday I did not see much hand fighting. It was really a lot of like 2-step drop, double leg, 2-step drop, double leg. And it's like, man, you got to grab wrists, you got to grab the collar tie, you got to pull the head down, you got to pass the elbow. You got to really engage in the hand fight. And I think Greco is an opportunity for people to really get exposed to, the hard hand fight, the setting up ties, the 2-on-1s, again, all those types of positions. So Marty, what do you think about how, you said you like freestyle Greco, but you've seen wrestling and I know you're a big proponent of hand fighting and stuff. How did you get kids to really adopt the hand fighting in high school wrestling?
The best thing that really made like our kids better hand fighters are the kids that went to college and then would come back and tell them, you guys don't have a clue what's going on until you learn how to hand fight. Every kid who ever wrestled in college for me, it was hand fighting and getting off the bottom. Those two things were so pivotal that when they got to college, the ability to just hand fight, and the ability to have some guy on you and just beating the crap out of you, not letting you get off the mat. But hand fighting was one of my biggest. That's what I truly believed in hand fighting, and Greco was a big part of it. Greco's basically a fight.
Yeah,
it's
hand fighting. It's a vicious hand fighting. It's awesome.
Yeah, and what I like so much too, and I don't know if I articulated it the last time we chatted, Greco is so different that kids that maybe are starting to get burnt out towards the end of that long folk style season. It's like a complete refresh, different rule set. It's almost like a game, So for me as a coach and as a wrestler, I always loved getting into the Greco season because it was like a total reset. It was still wrestling, and I was still doing most of the stuff that I did anyway, but it just felt different. It felt a lot lower pressure. I didn't really care if I won or lost until I really got to those elite levels, at world team trials and US Open and different things. Then I start to get pissed if I lose. But, for the most part, it was like a different sport. And it was just fresh and fun and energetic. And all of my buddies loved to do it. And we had a really cool atmosphere at Alpha Wrestling Academy where everybody wanted to wrestle Greco. And on top of that, like not a lot of people really know what they're doing in Greco. So, we talked last week about, how, kids might be reluctant to wrestle freestyle because the gap, is so great. You get taken down if you don't know what you're doing. You're just getting tech. Most of the guys in Greco don't know what they're doing either. So, the way that I fell in love with Greco was that I tricked myself into thinking that I was good. I took like second at Greco State and I was like, man, I'm good at this. I wasn't good. Everybody else was just as bad as I was. But then I kind of took that and I owned it. And then I actually became, really, really excited about the sport. And that kind of pigeonholed me as the Greco guy. And then my dad got super into it. He was the Greco director for how many years at Illinois. And my brother, wrestled at the world championships and wrestled at the Olympic trials. And it's just been such a cool way for us to find our own way in wrestling. And every wrestler that I've ever opened their eyes to Greco ends up falling in love with it. So I'm biased. I do it because it's fun. Selfishly, it's just way more fun to teach my kids how to pick them up and bomb them and learn how to fight. But I also think it's just such a strong asset to improve your overall wrestling and folk style. Having those upper body threats, having that hand fighting, having that toughness is something that most kids don't have just inherently after a few years of wrestling. So, I am, like I said, extremely biased towards Greco-Roman wrestling, but will die on that hill over and over and over again to anybody that'll listen.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a proponent. I think what you just said is accurate. I wish, like I said, during the year, if you're not doing some sort of practice where you're just engaging hand fighting and positional battles upper body wise, I think you're missing out on an important component of the development. So incorporating some type of Greco throughout the entire year, I think is positive. I mean, yesterday there was a couple of times where I was like, man, we have to, the one thing I love about the Greco is we got to get past this idea that headlocks are a bad move. Now, I totally understand that some people exploit the idea of a headlock, but I remember a lot of good kids that I grew up idolizing throwing headlocks all the time, and I loved throwing headlocks. So, yesterday there were some kids that could have used some training on a headlock, a good one. And so, yeah, I think Greco could be beneficial to that.
Yeah. So I'll give my last bit and then I'll get out of here. I gotta go shovel my driveway. But headlocks are something that I am so passionate about, not only because of how my brother and I wrestled, but it always frustrates me when people call headlocks junk moves, or they say that you shouldn't teach them to kids because they'll live by the sword and die by the sword. The problem with headlocks is that most coaches don't teach them and drill them like any other moves that they teach. Oftentimes, the only headlocks that you see are at the end of a match when a kid is tired, when everybody's sweaty, their opponent's probably winning by 9 points or more. So everybody in the gym knows they're going to try to throw a headlock, and that kid's never practiced a headlock before. If you teach a headlock, like if a headlock's there, we're going to take it. And there's 4 real key points where your shoulder's supposed to be, where your feet are supposed to be, what you're going to do with your hips, how you set them up. A headlock is more than a solid move, and it's a move that can take an average wrestler to a great wrestler, or a bad wrestler to a dangerous wrestler. And I'm also biased. I don't usually talk about myself in wrestling in high school. I had 2 state championship matches, and they both ended in headlock pins. Like, you can't look at me and tell me that headlocks don't work. I hit headlocks at college, I hit headlocks at world team trials, and my kids at Rochelle hit nuclear headlocks, and it's awesome. And everybody always will say, oh yeah, Baker just caught me, or that Rochelle kid just caught me. It's like, no, we just strangled you, and we set it up, and we meant to do it. Like, so, Greco gets a bad rep, lat drops, headlocks get a bad rep, but it's all about what you emphasize and what you're setting up and trying to do as far as the sport of wrestling is concerned. Obviously, you can certainly live by the sword and die by the sword. And sometimes I died by the sword, like that comes with it, but it's just fun. It's cool to be the spark plug. It's cool to get pins. It's cool to have big throws. And I am all for it. Like I said, continuing to die on the hill, but it's just awesome. I love wrestling.
My high school that I went to, we were headlock freaks. And I mean, I still have a picture of me pinning some guy in 9 seconds from a headlock. I mean, he kind of walked into me. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to headlock you. And the thing is, too, though, is that those kids that are throwing headlocks won't get headlocked.
Correct.
I mean, there's a couple of kids I've watched this year on a couple of high school teams. I'm just like, going, oh my God, control the other arm, control the other. Oh, you're going to get headlocked. Oh, you're going to get headlocked. You're walking around, get a big double with big underhook and coming in hard and just get whacked. Yeah, I mean, headlocks are part of the game.
Yeah. No, I mean, we were talking about the Geneseo tournament. I won the Geneseo tournament with a headlock one year. But the kid was walking right into it. So
right.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Not throw it?
Right.
All right, Nelson. Well, thanks for jumping on. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me on. I'm always available. I think it's super cool what you guys are doing. I listen to every episode. I'm thankful enough to, it feels like I'm kind of a regular now, so that's cool. And getting to know you guys and talking wrestling in the Illinois sphere is so awesome. So thanks for having me.
Good luck with regionals and stuff. We'll see you down in Champaign.
Absolutely. We're open. So
awesome.
See ya.
See ya. All right, Marty. I'm going to bring in Jake Messink.
Awesome.
We might actually bring in Justin Lahman at the same time, but I want to bring in Jakob first. Jake, what's up?
What's going on, Dalton? How you doing?
Welcome to the first ever live podcast. So
glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, we just finished up with Nelson Baker, and now you're here. I was just telling the guys I went to the dual meet last night against you guys, Harlem and East. And yeah, what are your initial assessments of yesterday?
Um, well, it's similar assessments to where we've been. I mean, pretty much this whole season. We got a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys. So, um, even when even when we're making progress, there's always those moments or those matches where the inexperience shows. And I mean, I think every single match last night was a pin. Um, and my message before the duel was, we if we're gonna win this without a couple of our key guys, we're gonna have to get bonus points, we're gonna have to get pins, and we're gonna have to not get pinned. And we obviously lost more matches than we won, and with it all being pins, I mean, the score can get out of hand real quick. But I mean, I talk to the guys a lot about as far as the team goes. I mean, we're not gonna win everything right now, but as long as we're making those strides, and some nights, some of those kids are gonna make their strides, and some nights they're not. But I think that we still do have a lot of promise, and there was three or four guys off the top of my head that showed improvement. I think one of my 150 pounder told me that his freshman year, so he's a junior, Preston's a junior. His freshman year, he got pinned by the kid that he dominated last night. So I mean, that just shows that that individual's making some progress if he's already got that win back after just 2 years. So I mean, a lot of good, a
Yeah.
lot of bad, but I still think we're making improvements.
Yeah, and I think just from being there were a couple of those matches that easily could have been the other way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We were joking a little bit about just generally speaking, wrestling as not just Harlem, just not East, just in general. There's a lot of matches that end up in pins because positionally, kids just aren't comfortable quite yet. There's a there's a lot of there's a lot of kids that are lacking certain feels and experience with wrestling. But again, that's just gonna happen with with the time that we're in. And then coaches like you just continue to build systems in your program to develop the kids that are coming up, and eventually they'll have improved experiences. I guess the dual meets will look better, the matches will be more
Oh, no doubt,
you know
no doubt.
consistent. So uh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just staying right now. I talked to a couple of my coaches afterwards, and I mean, we all have to remind each other about the process and about rebuilding something, because where we come from, where you come from, what we seen the Nick 10 be 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. uh we're just not there right now. But I think the times we're in right now, we're going to be more grateful for when we do get back to the more competitive, the more um, higher higher level wrestling, I guess, where a lot of matches are going to be won by a point, or those bonus points are going to be a little more few and far between. But it's been I mean, all across the board. If I look at duels, I mean, they're high scoring, they're really high
Yeah,
scoring. So that tells you it's like
it's
you
not
said,
just one thing.
some of
Yeah.
those matches could have been the other way on both sides.
Well, I was telling him, I think it was definitely the 106 match. The 106 match, your guy was getting the pin and somehow got rolled through and got
Yeah,
pinned. And I think that happened at the 190 or the 220 or the 215 pound match as well.
it did, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Marty, I was curious when you first got started at Hananiga, how did you maintain perspective as to your short term, like who you had in the room, how good they were, and then like creating systems around your programs, whether it's practice systems, whether it's training philosophies and stuff, to get the program to kind of create momentum into, what it ended up becoming.
I got a story. I always have a story to start something.
Yeah, yeah,
So
good.
my first year coaching, I was living with Mike Miller, who is the basketball coach at Hananiga, took Guilford to state and stuff like that. And we won our first two duels. And when I was a volunteer assistant the year before for half a semester, I never saw a kid win a match. So we wrestled Freeport, we beat them, and then we wrestled like Lena Winslow or somebody, and we beat them. And I came home and I'm like, we're 2-0. He goes, well, let me know when you win your third match or your third duel. We never won another duel. We went 2 and like 19 or whatever. But that first year of me coaching at the conference and at the regionals, we never scored a point.
Oh man.
We had 0. And I walked in after break and Perry Giardini was putting up a 1. He goes, you got to at least get 1 point just for trying, Marty. And I said, take the goddamn thing down. I said, someday you're going to regret this. And it just, it takes time. We're public schools. We're not Catholic schools. We're not private schools that can just go out and grab kids. We're the people who come in that door are the kids who are going to wrestle for you. And I think it's more important when you guys have success than any ever private school because you guys do it because you do it the right way. And I mean, the conference is going to come around. It is. It's cyclical. But I mean, there's young people like you guys that are coaching that are energetic, and someone like Dalton that's doing this stuff, getting publicity for the sport. It's awesome. I mean, it takes time. It took me forever. And then once we got going, people bought into it. But yeah, I mean, try having a 0
Yeah.
your first year in regionals and sections, or regionals and conference. 0. No points. Never won a match.
Yeah. Did you have a full lineup going into that
Oh, hell
conference?
yeah. I always had a full lineup. I mean,
Even
it was
then,
a full lineup.
even a 0 scored with
There
0
was
points
13
scored,
weight classes in. I had 13 kids.
and they
Yeah.
didn't. Not one of them won.
No, not one match. Not in wrestlebacks. Nothing.
I got you. And how many years did it take before you?
I became head coach in '89, and we won a regional in '92 or '93, and a conference, I think, too. Took a little bit,
Yeah.
But it was just,
Yeah.
What else we got? I mean, we had no kids club or anything. I got the kids club going, got stuff going as youth stuff, and it just kind of spawned. But yeah, I mean, I went through tough times. So what would I ever? I mean, I actually got offered one of the top coaching jobs in Iowa in 1992. I got a call and got interviewed, and they called me back and wanted to offer me the job. And I was getting married to my wife in '90. I already got engaged, and I knew there was no way in hell she was leaving this area. So I just said, no, guys, I'm not going to take the job. And it was the best decision of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard sometimes, especially when I was a younger coach. When I was younger, it was harder to separate the competitive desires to want to win and compete and stuff. But, as I got older, I started to realize like, there's only so many things that you can control. You can't control a kid who's only wrestled for 2 years and doesn't really understand the sport. And you can't be mad when they don't listen to you yelling, stop grabbing that or whatever, whatever it is. It's like you almost drive yourself insane if you think that you're supposed to have a kid totally understand that.
Right.
So maintaining like perspective as to, you know, um, how long it takes to get good at wrestling. For me as a somebody who I think is, as self I'm considering myself a really good wrestler. I know how hard it is to get really good at wrestling. So for me to expect a lot out of somebody who's, maybe only wrestling for the second year or the first year and is only doing it for 3 months out of the year, it's like I can't have my emotions get too excitable when it's just not that easy of a sport. It's very hard to really get this. So, for me, it got a lot easier for me to like kind of put a smile on my face and like ride the roller coaster, like, coming off the mat. Man, you had them, but didn't end up like that way, just having the ability to shrug it off. Because again, when you think about those athletes that you're working with, the last thing those kids need is a reason to quit wrestling.
Right.
So you almost have to really get yourself to recognize like, hey, wow, that was fun. It's like you got your butt whooped. You got your butt whooped in front of your mom. I can't believe you did it. But hey, let's go. Let's get back to work because we can't let that happen again. But you have to have it, a playfulness with it. Because a really good kid, you can be more critical and they're going to be responsive to that criticism. They're going to be, concerned with, why they didn't grab the wrist when they should have grabbed the wrist. Why didn't they down block when they should have? Why didn't they focus on the setup? A good kid is going to be capable of taking, hard criticism or harder criticism. But a kid who's just getting involved, I don't want to bust anybody out, and it's nobody on your coaching staff, I don't believe. But I did see somebody, I think it was a dad, and then Marty, we talked about this. I saw a dad yelling at one of your guys' kids, one of the Harlem kids, and I was like, it's like the kid was in good positions. It's just you could tell that the kid wasn't fully knowledgeable about those positions. And so it's like I wanted to be like, this kid doesn't need a reason to quit. He needs a reason to have some excitement for the next practice, because the next practice is the only thing that's going to make him get a little bit better.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, as I'm getting older and as I'm doing it more, I mean, I especially with all these newer kids, it is finding, that little, I mean, there's a lot of joy in it, but sometimes we get so wrapped up, or coaches get wrapped up, kids get wrapped up into wins and losses, when really, I mean, there's a kid in our varsity lineup that I'm not sure has won a varsity match yet, but I mean, last night there was a couple positions where he was defending and he was doing the right things, and he was hanging his head all the way back till we got back to the school. But I'm like, you walk him through those little things, and then all of a sudden, he's excited to get to work the next day um and get better, because that really is what it's all about. And um I like to pay attention to the little things, especially what we're doing in practice and then what they're improving on in matches. Like, to me, that is exciting, because that means like what we're doing is making an impact, like, directly. And if you get a group of, I mean, we have a pretty big group of freshmen and sophomores in our varsity lineup, and because we're in these down years, they're getting a chance to wrestle varsity matches, even though they're probably not ready for them. But I think if they get excited about it, and they they still love wrestling, even when it's they're losing a lot more than they're winning. That's amazing, because imagine when they start winning, how much fun they're going to have. So as long as they stay with it and they continue to improve, I think I got quite a few kids that'll get there.
yeah. Well, great. So just before we let you go, is there anything that you're excited about coming up with the conference tournament and the postseason, and I guess just generally speaking about wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been a weird week for me. Well, I mean, over break, we had pretty good attendance. I probably had 75-80% of my kids show up every day, but having these 2 snow days this week, and then, we had to compete yesterday, so we've had 2 practices this week. It's pretty frustrating, and everyone think you'd be happy to be off work, but I don't like it. I don't like not having not only for myself the structure, but the structure for the kids. So I mean, really, just hopefully next week getting back to like a normal week of practice is really exciting. And I mean, with this young group and experienced group, every day is so important, and they make these little strides that lead to them winning more matches. And I mean, the group that I have right now, I have like 32 kids left, from what we started with, and they're all there every single day. So um, whether they're winning or losing, they're getting better because they're showing up every day. So I, I'm I'm looking forward to it all the competitions, because it's, you see those little strides every time, no matter how frustrating it is to lose overall, or lose more matches than you win. It's at the end of the day, I just get excited to work with these kids, and know that better days will definitely be ahead if I keep this good attitude.
Yeah.
And you will.
Marty, you got it. Yeah. Marty,
No,
you
it's
got
awesome.
anything?
No, it's
Last words?
awesome. I mean, you got the great attitude you do, and you got the young kids that want to wrestle, and that's all it takes. I
And
mean, when it starts spinning the right way, it spins quick and it goes fast, and it's awesome.
it
They
does.
start they start going off each other.
And last night, having all those kids club kids there, and hearing the interactions between the high schoolers and the kids, and I got to hold my son during the face off, and he was just telling me how cool it was the whole time. And really, that's the, even though I'm not directly with those kids every day, seeing all those little kids, whether it's, in whatever school it is, but last night it was all the Harlem kids in their little Harlem gear. It was just awesome to know that there's kids enjoying it right now. So, by the time they're high school age, it's going to be a totally different ball game. And what they're doing with the kids club is great. I've stuck around a few times here and there this season, and it's just night and day difference between um, the excitement I seen last year to this year. So, I the future is exciting, but I try to stay present right now because I mean I got kids in front of me that really love the sport, and I owe it to them to help them get as successful as they can be.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on, and good luck the rest of the way. And we'll see you here soon at the conference tournament at the end of the
Absolutely.
month.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was nice talking to you.
You bet. Good seeing you.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
See ya. All right, Marty. Last one. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Last one. Justin Lahman from Oregon. So finish up with a little more 1A talk, and yeah, we actually covered all three classes. Now that
It's awesome, isn't it? Though, yeah,
yeah,
that's
that
pretty
is cool.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got to meet Justin too when we get to the state tournament. I got to find him and meet him.
Okay. Yeah,
I like a lot of his philosophies.
I got you. So you've listened to some of our conversations on
Yeah,
the podcast.
yeah.
All right. Well, when he gets up here, I'll have you tell me what recently
Oh my God!
you.
Don't put the pressure on me. I just like his
Okay.
attitude. I just like everything
Okay.
he's
Okay.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
same
No.
with
I like it. He's a likable. Go ahead.
Messink too. I like it. I like his
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. I think. Here's the thing. I think in general, coaching right now, we have good coaches, and just from my experience, and Marty, I saw a little bit of the behind the scenes of how you had things moving. And the biggest challenge from a high school coach, I think, is having some type of ability to actually make decisions that go down all the way to the kids club program, middle school program, and so
Yeah,
on. I think the challenge is always that you have a good coach that wants to be at the high school, but then there's just no consistent support. There's no following the leader. Everybody's trying to, you know, basically take over, right? Somebody
right.
else wants the top position.
Yeah,
Everybody can do a better job than the guy who's in charge, right? That's just how human nature works. Um, so I think we have good coaches. I think yeah, I think there's good coaches. I think there's a good situation as far as just general programs and stuff. Yeah, I just hope that, talking to Justin a lot, he has a lot of support from, the bottom part
yeah.
of the program and stuff. So, yeah. So Justin, welcome
Yeah,
back.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We were just talking about just one today in our live podcast. We've had single A, or now single A, so 2A, 3A, and now single A coaches. So that's kind of cool that we get to cover all classes of wrestling. One up north, one south, and now we're going a little bit south west to you. But how's your day going? You you surviving the snow?
Yep, surviving. Still working. That's the only I guess downside of being a work from home guy because you don't really get a snow day. So I kind
Yeah.
of juggle everything in between. And luckily, I got a job that is very flexible. And one, I'm able to coach, but then also coach around a practice time in the middle of the day or something like that, or just in general. So it's nice. But yeah, surviving.
Yeah. So today you were supposed to have a duel, and explain, who are you having the duel with?
Tonight was supposed to be Freeport and Amboy, um, and then obviously, unfortunately, can't have that. And then tomorrow we were supposed to host a quad with Richmond Burton, Sterling Newman, and Rock Ridge, which pretty much all the teams were really looking forward to. There's a lot of solid teams, but at the same time, some really good matchups at a couple of weights with high level ranked guys. I think it's number one and number one at 48 or 44 and 38, but one's I think going to end up both being at 44. So that one would have been a good matchup to see. And then there's a couple lighter weights that they've wrestled a few times already this year that we're kind of hoping to see. So it was a bummer we had to cancel that as well. So
Gotcha. So that one's off, and mostly, obviously, the uncertainty about how much snow we get, um, and stuff. But some of the
yeah,
schools have already backed out.
yeah, and then I mean they're coming from a ways too. So Richmond, Rock Ridge have a pretty big drive to get here. So just kind of playing the safe card and um, trying to reschedule if we can, but late in the year, everybody's kind of got their schedule set. It's hard to squeeze stuff in, so we'll see if we can get any of these made up.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely tough, right? It's hard to try to make up something when you're trying to peak for the state tournament. Uh, yeah, I guess that's sometimes just the nature of the beast. That the cool thing again, I brought this up before, but the cool thing is that the dates um, are no longer a thing. So you really get to schedule your dates as much as you want, and then work around that whole component. So I think you have much more freedom now to not be like totally upset. Obviously, the matchups, you're looking for the matchups, you're looking
Yep.
for the tournaments, but having the ability to go to as many dates as possible is probably pretty good.
Yeah, so we always, in a way, kind of overbook, right? So whether a kid either isn't ready at the beginning of the year or gets hurt in the middle of the year, or so we always try to still, pad our schedule a little bit with some extra duels and that, because winter seasons are always hit or miss. Luckily, the last few years we haven't really, missed many duels or had to cancel them. But so for the first time this year, I mean, it is 5 matches for us, so that's quite a few. But we still should come pretty close to hitting our 45 matches. Whether we use them all or not is okay, but it's always nice to have those options there. Pick and choose when you want to wrestle and sit.
And so this year so far, how many guys in your lineup are either ranked or positioned in honorable mention, like close to
I
rank?
think I think we actually only have 2 right now. I think he's in the top 10 somewhere at 113, and then Anthony is 3 or 4 at 157. So we had our heavyweight's a pretty solid kid that's been hurt. He's just on his way back. He's a junior. He placed last year at the Fresh Soft State Series, so he's kind of in a way, a hidden gem. Hoping that we can get him cleaned up, ready to go for that state series run, and I kind of make some noise. So he's wrestled a lot of kids that are ranked this year that we've beat, in past years or have had really good matches with. So in a way, I think he's right up there. And then we got a couple more that I hope we can surprise some kids.
Yeah. And looking at the end of the year, so do you guys? You're part of the uh, Northwestern Conference, right?
Yeah,
Northwestern Illinois Conference. And you guys do not have a conference tournament either, do you?
we're the Big Northern Conference, and yeah,
Sorry,
so
Big
we
Northern.
yeah, so we do not have a conference like tournament, individual tournament. We just do our duels. So we still have those 2 duels. So the next 2 Wednesdays coming up are finishing up our conference duel schedules.
Okay. And so we were just chatting a little bit about the conferences. Rochelle doesn't have a conference. I don't know if you got to listen in at all.
Yeah, I
Um,
was listening a little bit as I was getting some work done.
yeah, and so we were talking about not having a conference and how the conference. I mean, obviously you have conference duels now. How much weight do you guys put into those conference duels as far as like motivation for your team and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, everybody always wants to win conference. If you have it, it's nice to just have one more, kind of bragging right, so to say. Um, but then we also play a lot of the cards of where we at individually. Is it do we need to sit, take a break, whether we're banged up a little bit? Um, like then you also have the rivalry, right? So Byron's always a big one that no matter whether conference is on the line or not, we want to try to win that duel. And then if you go back the last I think 4 or 5 years, it's been Dixon. So everybody's kind of been trying to catch Dixon to win a conference title. So there's been a little more draw as of late to kind of finally maybe get over that hump and beat Dixon, which usually means if you beat Dixon, you got a chance to, secure either the entire conference title or share it with somebody. So last year I would say was probably our biggest push of actually trying to win a conference title and really focusing on it. It just didn't pan out. We had injuries at the wrong time and a couple of guys out and lost to Dixon again. but they're doing the right thing. I mean, they always have a great team. They're solid from top to bottom, and just
Yeah.
don't give up bonus points. So you got to have a full team ready to go to try to win a conference here in the Big Northern.
Yeah. Well, Dixon beat Rochelle and Lee Win right in the beginning of the season this year. So
Yep.
they must have a solid lineup if they beat two ranked. They were both ranked at the time when they got beat, but so yeah.
Yeah, they won. I'm pretty sure they won the Plano tournament too, which is a mix of kind of 1A, 2A teams. But like I said, they don't have any holes. You're not gonna get an easy 6 point win from somebody on their lineup. They just if they're gonna lose, they're gonna battle you 6 minutes. So it's gonna
Yeah.
take everything to beat them.
Yeah. Marty, you got any thoughts or any questions for Justin and his Oregon Hawks?
No, I just can't wait to meet you at the state tournament. I see
Yeah,
you. I've never met you. Never sit down. We'll talk a little bit. It'll be great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some guys down there. I don't like to
Oh,
look too
you
far ahead
will.
because
You will.
we we always like to play it safe. An injury bug or anything like that bites you, and you're right back to square one and
Well,
regroup
you
it.
know what? Here's what I told a kid the other day. I asked him what his goals were, and he said his goals, and then right after he said them, he said but, and I said but. I said don't hope anything. Make it happen. So if I were to tell you, don't play it safe. If those kids let themselves down, then in whatever situation comes up, right? Whatever, but you deal with it. But you know, I like to I like to think that they're burn the boats. We're going down, and that's a good way for people to commit. Make sure it happens. You don't have really opportunity to be nervous. You got to just go fight really hard and take what you want. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you guys have a couple guys that are really solid. I know that sectional tournament is really tough.
Yep.
So sometimes it is a crapshoot to know what spot you end up in the Russelbacks, and some of those kids don't get out. But yeah, that should be pretty good for you guys. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is what we were talking about with Nelson. A couple of things. Obviously, you and I talked about the folk style off-season stuff.
Yep.
And just if there's any more thoughts that you had, I definitely thought a little bit more. I've thought about other locations. I've got a little bit contact with people about creating that folk style series. But so, how many kids, if you have any kids, how many kids would even want to wrestle freestyle as opposed to doing folk style? How many kids do you even have on your team that are thinking that national tournament level type stuff?
I would say there's probably only a handful that are looking at that, like as a Fargo goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, that's really what a lot of them are trying for. But there's there's way more that are just interested in staying on the mat. And like I said, the last few years, it's kind of been, Forge over in Rochelle, but they're a freestyle Greco, or you go to Albers, which is freestyle Greco as well during that time. So there's really no opportunity for a kid that maybe just wants to work and getting better at folk style. There's not a whole lot of folk style draw unless it's a local camp, like I said, where we bring Eric Barnett or DJ Hamidi in and run a camp, or another high school runs, a local camp with either a guy coming back. So I think there would be some draw to like having something going on event wise that would anticipate us to have kids coming into the room and trying to get ready for something instead of just going, I'm just going to come roll around and then I don't really get anything out of it. And I don't mean they don't get anything, but there's no incentive to work towards if it's just freestyle and Greco and they're not into that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, going off of that, so this opportunity to have like a little local series, I think it will be a great opportunity because the another thing that we discussed briefly is the idea of creating some type of region tournament where we invite the people in the area to come and see if we can put on maybe an event that rotates. Don't you think it would be cool to have a rotating event like that?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like that's where we're trying to start branching our schedule out a little bit too, and not focusing just on the 1A schools and worrying about that. But let's go chase competition that's local. So like obviously Rochelle's close, they're 2A. We'll see them, and then just keep branching into that. We've started our ads kind of reached out a little bit. He's like, you want to see some of the Rockford schools or get into that area and stop not wasting their time, but wrestling small duels where teams don't fill a lineup or they have 3 or 4 kids and you waste a night, you lose a practice and everything, not wrestling somebody that's pushing your kids as a whole. So our numbers are only gonna probably continue to grow. So when you have a team of 30, 40 kids, you got to make sure you're getting teams that have the same numbers. So you're not taking them and, oh, we only have 8 matches tonight. More than half of you aren't even going to come close to touching the mat or having a backup to try to wrestle twice. So we're trying to find teams with numbers and, push the pace a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe even like another event could be like those duels, the duel tournament that you guys go to for Abe's, like just the mega duel comp idea, the concept of just getting, I don't know, 15 teams in a gym and seeing how that thing works out with dual meets. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yep.
Especially if you get full lineups, or even if you don't have full lineups, you have the ability to put uh, a full lineup together from most of the teams in the area. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's our draw. So if you look when we start kind of in June, we go to ISI at the end of June, which is a big team camp. I mean, we get 40 kids that go to that, 30, 40 kids on our team. So we have a high school team and a junior high team. So when they know we have something coming up, our month of June is usually pretty full with running a camp, and our rooms open on Sundays. We do open mats and kids show up. So it's when we have something to work for, they're there.
And so with that team camp, do you stay there?
Yeah, so that we do. You don't have to. You can commute and do all that stuff, but it's actually not too bad when you think about it. It's like $325, and that's the entire 4 or 5 days that you're down there rooming. They take care of your food. You get fed really well, and then it's all the big names are there. Yeah, RBY was there, Gomez was there, so they get some big guys down there. You get a bunch of matches in, so it's a win-win. You get some time with some you know guys that they're seeing on TV wrestle, and then turn around, kind of hang out with them. But then at the same time, you're wrestling some schools from all over the country that come up and wrestle. And we wrestled a team from I think it was Louisiana that was very competitive, private school down there, and you can tell they wrestle year round. But it's just nice to see that just get different guys get a look and see where you're at.
I got you. And where's it held at? What's the event?
This one's at Illinois Wesleyan down in Bloomington. I
Okay.
They have two this year. Usually there's three. They usually run one like in Iowa, and then down at Bloomington, and then they pair that up with Midwest Nationals, and that's a pretty good tournament. Usually
Okay.
some tough competition there.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if well, just I think to see if any of those types of collaborations could come together, whether it's off season or even in season, um, in the next coming years. I think this would be a good opportunity. I think in the past it's always been hard to, communicate. Marty, have you ever talked to the Oregon head coach before when you were coaching?
Yeah, we used to wrestle
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Well,
think
that's
back in
good.
the day it was a thing.
back in the early '90s.
All right.
Yeah,
But outside of that, like before that, how many times did you talk to him on a yearly basis?
Probably not very much.
Yeah.
We traveled all around and wrestled freestyle and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah. This is an opportunity. What I'm saying is to break bread with so many people, right?
oh
We've had
yeah,
three
knowledge.
different coaches
Yeah,
and be able to share ideas and collaborate.
the only way you
yeah,
get better is by watching and learning.
Yeah.
yeah, and just figuring out what's working for teams. Get nothing
Mm-hmm.
against the kids, but boy, it's way different now than back in the day. So, just trying to see like, how's Rochelle getting their numbers? How are you keeping your kids out? What's working for you? And or you just can kind of look and you start going, okay, Nelson and I talk quite a bit about like that social media. You got to have it. You got to have stuff fun, kids, getting their name out there. And this is another great way. And then you look at some other schools, and I don't want to bash them, but you don't see a whole lot. So it's like a kid works his butt off day in and day out, beats a good kid. And then unless somewhere on the rankings, they finally take notice, there's no hype about it. There's nothing, you got some
Yeah.
good duels going on. And, kind of like we've talked before is, you're not sure who's good and who's not. So, oh, okay. So Nelson beat this kid. Is that kid good? If you don't follow 24/7, you don't know. So it's nice to, get that knowledge of what's working in clubs to keep the numbers out and kids interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest sports there is, and it's one of the sports that has the least publicity.
Yep.
It's a necessity. There's nothing better than being a really good wrestler and seeing your name in the paper or seeing your name on website. Back in the day when I was coach, it was the newspaper and stuff and whatever. But now what Dalton's doing is great.
Yeah. Well, what I've always wanted to do, Marty and I love the idea of coming to an event, but I want to be able to have like a sheet of paper or even have the ability to have already educated, say Marty, on like the kids who are doing well, where they're ranked, how they're competing, their weight class, their record. And so then if we do a broadcast of any kind, we know enough about them that we can really start to talk about them. And again, make their names known, right? Like I think the louder that you can talk about the kids that are doing the right things, have, high aspirations, they're good coachable kids, they're working out in the off season, they're staying disciplined in season. Then that spreads. I was
Yep.
motivated by kids that were doing that, and the more you focus on that, then you give other kids the the roadmap to success, and then soon you got 20 really competitive kids on your team as opposed to just a handful. So
Yep.
we'll continue to do our parts and try to make Northern Illinois wrestling a little bit better each year. Um, but yeah, now Justin, do you have anything else to finish up on? Otherwise, we'll let you go and conclude this
Yeah.
podcast.
No, just appreciate it. Always good to get on and chat wrestling. Obviously, it's nice. My wife gets annoyed at times. She's home today, so I said, I'm gonna jump on a podcast. She's like, again? I said, yeah. Never want to turn it down. It's always good to see you catch up and just talk about all the hard work that our kids are putting in. That's the big thing.
Great. Well, I
Without
appreciate it. Marty, thanks. Justin, thanks.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
yeah, we'll talk soon. Good luck with the rest of the season, and we'll catch up by the end of the season into the state series. So, um, yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
good luck.
Thank you.